How we do this, we are the truest. Got these fangs super sharp, your shit toothless. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish. In the graveyard, acting foolish. Finna dance with the devil to no music. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish.
I once was alive, and then I died, and now I'm back from the dead. Hello, my name is Max Booth. I'm an undead host of a podcast called Ghoulish, which you are listening to right now. And if you don't know what I mean by being undead, go back to episode 100. I was killed. I was assassinated with a poison egg. By who? I don't know. Maybe by James Keaton. I didn't ask him if he killed me. I don't think he would have told me the truth if he had. He could have killed me. It's really possible. I've published him many times, and maybe he's disappointed with the way I've handled his books, and he wanted to get revenge. I don't know. It's really possible, and now that I think about it, quite likely. Anyway, this is an interview show, a little podcast of mine. Thank you for tuning in. I'm talking to James Keaton. He wrote a book that I published through my small press, Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing. The book title is even longer than the title of the press, if you can believe it. It's called She Was Found in a Guitar Case. And it's about a fictional version of the author. It's a fictional Dave Keaton who is notified by the police that his wife was found. Now, I don't know if you can guess where I'm going with this one, but she was found in a guitar case, and he does not react the way you might expect. Things are a disaster pretty much immediately. He's going to get into this later on in the episode, but he wrote this book in response to the missing girl genre, like, Gone Girl and the Millennium Trilogy and those books along those lines, because I don't know how common they are at this moment in time, but at least a decade ago, they were pretty common. I mean, it seemed to be like every New York Times best-selling novel was about a woman who went missing. And so we talk about that in this episode, among many other things, like a family that died in the woods by where he lives. We talk about doing captioning on TV shows. We talk about whether or not I've ever sent someone a dick pic. I am not happy that he asked me that question, but I am a honest host, and I had no choice but to respond truthfully. So he put me on the spot with that one. What else do we talk about? I don't know. It's kind of a wild conversation. We talk about his insane new house that he just moved into that has. Well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to spoil the surprise. You're just going to have to listen to the rest of the episode. And also, go buy She Was Found in the Guitar Case. I published it. It's a long novel. It's over 500 pages long. There's suspense, there's mystery, there's comedy, there's a musician in it who has two penises, allegedly. There's a mysterious animal who no one can decide what type of species it actually is. There's a big feet in it. There's a road trip. There's so much in this book. It's one of the best books I've read, probably in my life. Not the best book. I mean, the best book I've ever read. I mean, come on. It was a book I wrote, probably, because I have a huge ego. But it's up there. She was found in a guitar case, at least in the top 15 of the books I've read in my whole life. I can confidently say that. When you read it, hey, leave a review on the places you leave reviews. Goodreads, Amazon, you have a website, leave a review on the website, tell your friends. Because I don't think a lot of folks have picked up on this book yet, maybe because of the length, which is okay. I understand that one, but hey, it's a great book. I think you would like it. It's certainly a book you've never read before. It's really unique in that way, and I think you should give it a shot. But if you're still on the fence, listen to this episode with James Keaton. I think he's going to win you over by the end of it. Or maybe maybe he will convince you never to buy anything he writes again. It could go either way, to be honest. Judge for yourself and kick back and relax to my conversation with David James Keaton, a man with 3 names. In interviews you've done and also like essays you've written about this book, you always talk about the fact that you would kind of fantasize about what you would do if your wife went missing. I think that's like a common thing people think about, right? I mean, I've certainly had that like daydream, like how would I react if I was in a movie plot almost? Well, I had to go and track down like my missing wife.
Yeah. I think it, I think we talked about how, didn't you used to close caption stuff too?
Uh, I can't really claim like I had a career in it. I tried, but then I didn't get the job. I
Oh,
I did like the trial run for some shitty like robot operated website, and yeah, they said nope, we don't want you.
well, you ran into the future of captioning because I always assumed that they were going to go out of business any second because it's something that can be done electronically with some sort of voice recognition software. But I guess the company I work for is still limping along. But yeah, I was on the verge of being fired constantly because I wasn't great at it. This will all make sense in a second as far as one fantasizing about a significant other getting kidnapped. But going back to where it started was this captioning job, and I think like you, did you struggle with typing quickly and efficiently and not making typos and stuff? Is that what happened?
I'll be honest, I thought I did a great job, Keaton. I think
You
I was
probably
perfect.
did.
Yeah, I thought I was pretty fast. I can type fast, usually without many mistakes. I do like 95 words a minute, man.
See that?
I don't know what the deal was.
Well, it's a very it's a very strict sort of format. Like even though when people typically look at captions on a screen at a bar and it always looks like fucking gibberish, you're supposed to we're supposed to deliver it. When I worked there, we're supposed to deliver like a perfect file, and it was impossible. I couldn't do the perfect file they wanted, and it was kind of stressful. Like I'd constantly get called into the office for typos, and I think it actually was more beneficial than college because I learned about grammar and as far as creating an efficient sentence, and it was fucking stressful. But the as far as making any mistakes, like we were doing files for Martha Stewart and shit, and she had this caption Bible she sent where you couldn't have a single error in a file on one of her shows, and captioning one of her shows was like captioning gonzo pornography because she talks over all of her guests. Like, you ever watch pornography where the guy comes in with the camera and he talks the whole time?
Yeah,
So
recently.
it's really frustrating. It's frustrating for, I'm sure, everyone involved on every end of that camera. But that's what Martha Stewart does. She never lets the person she's interviewing talk. And so you were expected to caption everything she said on either side of the person she interrupted. And if there was an error, her people would send it back. And you get called into the office and they'd say, why didn't you look up the 7-Eleven is 7 dash the word 11? It's not 7 dash the number. Like, I don't know. I thought it was that from all my life. I don't know. I'd have no answer, but
I think I made that correction on this book actually. The 7-Eleven thing. I'm pretty positive I made that edit.
I can't shake that. I always think it's 7-Eleven like 9/11.
Yeah. What would 7-Eleven have done if like 9/11 had happened on 7-Eleven? Would they have rebranded or just like embraced it?
I think that I'm not sure what they are anyway. I think is it a gas station? Is it a grocery store? The ones in California don't have gas pumps, but I always assumed it was a gas station. If someone was to ask you what's 7-Eleven, what would you say? Besides a day of infamy.
I don't know what I would say. I think I would just I would say a gas station, but you're right because um I was in Soho recently and they had a bunch of them, but you don't get gas at them.
No, but they don't have enough of a selection to be a grocery store. So it's this weird loophole. Like they exist as a shitty grocery store because the gas pumps are gone. But anyway, yeah, so I was captioning for many, many years, like almost a decade of closed captioning and barely squeaking by. And my preference was crime shows because they had nice, slow, deliberate narration. You know, it was easy to do. It wasn't like Martha Stewart. So if you've watched, I'm sure Forensic Files, everybody loves Forensic Files. And you know that guy's soothing, slow, deliberate narration. That's a captioner's dream. And so we'd request those. We trained on Forensic Files because it's so slow. And then once I was put out into the cubicle yard with everybody else, I would say, I really love these crime shows. And then that sort of became true because I started doing so many of them, first because they were easy, and then because the subject matter was interesting and it wasn't a boring day of or a stressful day of doing Martha Stewart. And that's where I started to be obsessed with what if something happened to a significant other, because every one of these fucking shows is the murder or disappearance or rape or torture of a young woman. Whether that's because those statistics are higher or because that's what people want to see on their crime shows, I think it's somewhere in the middle. It's kind of both. But yeah, I got kind of overloaded with them to where it started making me a little crazy. And I started thinking when I captioned a show that took place nearby, or at the time I was dating my now wife, and I would call her and tell her about, you were going to jog today. I just captioned a show about somebody who was jogging and she was abducted, never seen again. And the cops couldn't do anything about it. Like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, what was she doing when she was abducted? And I said, she was on the phone. She's like, well, I'm on the phone right now with you. You're going to get me abducted. Yeah. Quit calling me about crime shows because you're distracting me. I need my head on a swivel if the world is as dangerous as you're saying. So it was like a catch-22, you want to check in, but I started thinking, what if I was the cause of it because I kept calling her? All that shit's in the book. For anybody listening to this, all this shit was unloaded, was purged from my psyche into this book.
Jogging
exactly
does seem like a dangerous activity, like in any movie or TV show. And like if you just read up about like real missing people, it always happens when they go jogging. That's why I don't jog.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would do it. You might as well, go shark hunting. It's safer. If you look at these crime shows, people are constantly getting just like sucked into the woods, never to be seen again. The woods are fucking dangerous. Did you see that in the news a couple of days ago? That whole family out here just turned up dead.
What? No, what are you talking about?
So the headline reads, family of 3 and their dog found dead on hiking trail. And it's been 3-4 days now. Nobody knows what happened. First, they said, was there a mine with toxic gases nearby? Was there an algae bloom? I can't imagine how that would kill 3 people and the dog. Like, do they sit down and eat algae? How do you die from an algae bloom?
So they don't even have an idea of the cause of death?
Nope, no clue. Just that they were found laying dead. A young couple, their 1-year-old child and the family dog, I guess, just dead in their tent, dead on the trail. No signs of violence, no trauma of any kind, no note. Nobody knows.
The fact the dog is also dead is perhaps the most troubling of it all, because you would think if someone attacked them, the dog could have easily escaped, like a wild animal. I don't know.
Yeah, or
what the hell?
The dog. Yeah, the dog. You'd probably think it'd be harder to fake a dog's death. You don't hear a lot about a dog's mysterious death, do you? I mean, it's usually pretty clear.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's fucking crazy. The woods are dangerous. Those people went into the woods And that's what happens essentially, is what Amy always wants to go hiking. She always wants to go on these hikes. And the whole time I'm just thinking, didn't you watch Forensic Files season 4?
Yeah. Did she? I don't know. Has she seen this show?
She likes it.
Yeah.
I put it on every time I can.
I
Sometimes I'll turn on the captions and say, hey, look, that's me. It's just like, Christ, turn it off.
especially where you guys live, man. California is dangerous to go hiking. Did you see that video of that dude who was like being hunted by a mountain lion and he had to just like keep screaming at it?
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. There's signs on a trail without the killer algae or the killer mine shafts. A routine sign will say, don't approach the mountain lions, don't approach the wild animals, share the trail with the wild animals. Yeah, that was where he's on the bike, right? He stops.
Yeah. I mean, the woods it's just too dangerous. And when I was a kid in the Midwest, the woods feel just fine, I think. But like I live in Texas now, and like I am not going into the woods. We have deadly snakes and shit.
Yeah, you guys are the mini Australia, right?
Yeah, basically. When you guys watch movies and TV now, do you use the captioning at all? Well, no.
I do, because the baby's sleeping, and if I watch something that's loud, and I think these the sound mixes on new movies are terrible. They're made for, I don't know if it's a home video audio system I don't have, but you probably noticed this. They get real quiet when they're talking, and then it's so loud when anything happens. So I either fuck with the volume the whole time, or I turn on the captions. And the captions are pretty incompetent. I think that I don't know if quality has slipped, or if they keep you under the threat of being fired at all times to do as good as you can, and nobody really does a good caption. But I see so many mistakes in these captions.
Yeah, me too. I can't watch anything if I'm not at the movie theaters without captioning. I can't focus for some reason. It's been like that for a long time with me. We began like when I was a kid, like with my family, we started watching those with the subtitles on because of that Adam Sandler movie of The Water Boy. We wanted to figure out what that fucking redneck guy was saying, and we turned them on, and whenever he talked, it would just say like made up language. So it was disappointing. But then we got used to just using them, and now if I put on any DVD or anything, I have to have the fucking subtitles on.
Yeah, that's solving something is fun with the captions, but if the captioner should have made that choice and should have attempted something there. There's the choices they make is what drives me crazy. I was watching something last night. I was watching the movie Dillinger for the first time, and it's a noisy. It's a post Wild Bunch, post Bonnie and Clyde bank robbery, Depression era movie. It's John Milius. So the last half hour is just like nothing but shooting. It's got so much shooting in it. It's kind of funny actually. But the captioner decided to put shooting stops, and I just thought, you don't get to make that decision. Like you don't, because you're not supposed to caption anything that doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Like the rule is you're captioning for supposedly the hearing impaired. So they will use context clues that you don't need to give them. For somebody to say the shooting stops just seemed just cocky as shit. I couldn't believe that caption showed up. Shooting stops.
Yeah. Speaking of like awful sound mixes, I know we'll way off topic, but who gives a shit? Did you see Tenet? My God.
Oh my God.
The real sound of all time, possibly.
He's a masochist. He doesn't want you to hear anything. And then he puts not only can't you hear it, then they mask up. Every Nolan movies, they got to have a mask on so you can't hear it even worse.
Dude, when COVID happened, Christopher Nolan just came in his pants.
It's like, finally the world I've dreamed of. Yeah, it's fucking hilarious.
Oh man,
I've been trying to solve that movie for that was the last, I guess the last thing I saw in the theater, because we went to the drive-in. So technically it was the last movie I saw
Yeah.
in public. And the drive-in wasn't optimum for that experience.
No.
You know. So I've got the layers of a director who hates his audience. I've got this sort of tech jargon heavy mumbly movie. I've got a mask on the guys, and I've got the bad sound mix, and I've got the speaker coming through my radio trying to tell me what's going on. So we just had to just sit there and try to figure it out with visuals. It's like watching the Jetty. It's like watching some sort of art film. It was kind of fascinating. We had fun trying to figure it out, but
yeah.
Since then I got it at home and it's no better. I can't figure out what's going on.
Movies makes no sense, but it does look cool, I think.
Yeah, I honestly I love Nolan's these big industrial, beefy, cumbersome, oppressive quote entertainment attempts. I love them. You know, I just love the effort that this guy is putting into these to try to entertain us. It's missing the mark on the public. I want him to make him bigger, more unwieldy, more indecipherable, and just that the high concepts are getting just oppressive's a good word for it, like brutalist.
He should adapt this book he wrote, man.
He wrote a book?
No, the book you wrote.
Oh,
the book we're supposed to be talking about. I think he should adapt that one.
I don't know. He could do maybe the next one is more high concept. This is just somebody driving around and talk. It's very talky for him. He would have to muzzle the narrator.
I mean, I think anyone who reads the book long enough might be okay with that. Which I think is a compliment.
Yeah, I'm so excited to get a review one day. I saw somebody on Goodreads started it, bailed out at page 60. I saw that.
I saw that too, man.
It's like I don't understand what how was page 60 a bridge too far? That's where
what was on page 60?
It's page 60 is I think it was page 62 is what the reviewer said. This is going to sound, I hesitate to say this, but I think it's a 2-page description of a punch that doesn't happen. I think it's one of those things where I'll ask you, have you ever written a dream sequence in a book?
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to, right? You're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to tell people about your dreams. Nobody wants to hear about a dream. You want to tell it. The urge to tell it is overwhelming.
Right. But
if I was to start talking to you right now and say, I got to tell you about this dream I had last night, nobody wants to hear that shit because it goes on and it only has this relevance to, the person's personal zeitgeist, right? And so a dream in a book, though, I mean, it's the urge to do it is pretty big, I think. And I mean, what didn't they say? Dreams are supposedly you rehearsing trauma to work through it. So have you heard this?
No, who
theory?
said this?
I've said this.
No, I said who said this.
Oh, I don't know.
You said they. Who's they?
What do you give me homework? I think there was an experiment like with rats or something. They did, of course it involved rats. They had these rats like going through a maze, and I don't know how they would be able to check a rat's dream though. Like they sent Jennifer Lopez in there, like the cell. Like how do they know what the rat was dreaming? We don't have that technology, do we? I don't know. I can't answer your question as far as where I got this source. Can you just trust me it's real? Trust me that the closest they've come to figuring out what dreams are, and people are pretty baffled about it still, is they think it might be rehearsal for trauma, so that if you have stress about something in your life, you dream about sort of that situation, but like a fucked up version of it. And then when it happens to you, you're better prepared for it. So in the experiment that I can't really remember, maybe making up, I don't know, the rats got better at the maze every time because effectively they're probably dreaming about it.
I don't think rats can dream, man.
I'm sure this is sort of true, but of course they dream. Any creature that when it sleeps and it kicks its little feet, that's dreaming.
Okay.
That's science, man. But I don't know. Oh, the idea of writing a dream on the page is always really frustrating because they become wish fulfillment when you start to translate it to when you tell somebody about it. Have you ever talked to somebody about a dream and they're like, oh man, I dreamed last night that I beat the shit out of you. And you're thinking, did you really? Or did you just want to say that? Because then they kind of one up you, like, and then you say, well, I kicked your ass in my dream. And they're like, no, but I kicked your ass every night this week. Every time I dream, I just beat the shit out of you. You're like, but you're making that up just to like have something over on me. So I think that subtly happens when people talk about their dreams, especially on social media. You'll see that they become these fables. In the dream, they do something noble, right? Or some sort of something is conquered. That's not how a dream works. A dream is, it's to bring it back to Christopher Nolan. It is not Inception. It is not, you don't dream of a poor man James Bond boardroom setting. That's, if you do, you're a billionaire, I guess. Maybe that's their dreams, but a dream is gibberish. Like, did you ever read that Onion article of, this is one of my favorite ones, Martin Luther King? I had a really weird dream. The article. So he's like, I had a dream in which I was in Yankee Stadium. I don't remember exactly, but I was in Yankee Stadium, but it was more like Yankee Stadium in my house. I had a dream that Yankee Stadium was full of circus animals. Like, because that's a dream. That's a dream is not some hope for the future. It is not conquering fears. A dream is Yankee Stadium is full of circus animals. So
a lot of my dreams, I end up like just getting into not like physical fights, but like arguments with people close to me. And then like you wake up and like you still want to continue to fight kind of, but like the other person doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
So you can't.
You look at them weird. You cross when somebody's in your dream, it sort of taints them.
Yeah.
You're still a little bit mad at them. Well, that's the rat. That's the rat figuring out the maze. It's helping you navigate that person.
Have you dreamt about me?
I don't think I have.
That's okay.
Hold on, let me think.
This is only the second time we've talked. We've known each other a long time. We've edited an anthology together, but this is the second time we've talked voice to voice.
Yeah, we have a very high concept sci-fi relationship. It's all online. It would be an indie sci-fi. You could be anybody. You could be portraying an idea of who you are. I would have no idea. I've never met you.
The last time we talked, I was driving across the country. I was in St. Louis, actually, when you called me to tell me Trump had COVID.
Well, it's like that's a public service. That's like when people used to call time and temperature. I probably went and called everybody on my phone list.
Dude, 3 people called me when that happened. Like back to back. It was pretty great. It made me just like feel loved by people, like knowing I had friends like that.
Yeah, but that was a weird moment. I have a lot of thoughts on that, but
anyway, speaking of driving across the country.
Well, wait, I never even finished the point of the dream.
Go ahead.
If you thought nobody wanted to hear people talk about dreams, wait till you listen to this podcast where we talk about people talking about dreams. It's even worse. But so that page that this person stopped reading on, because on Goodreads, if people don't know, on Goodreads it tells you people will say did not finish or whatever page they were on. There's progress. Maybe that's because they were doing it electronically. I don't know. But this page was sort of a dream sequence, but because I'm so ashamed of doing a dream sequence because of everything we just said, it distances itself from it, and it becomes like this fantasy fight scene. And I think all the layers of trying to distance yourself becomes that intrusive voice that if people don't want it, they don't want it. If you don't want to hear, if you're not on board with the voice of a first person narration, I don't think there's anything you can do to sell that to somebody. If they don't like the voice they're hearing right now, for example, you're not going to listen to it. So that particular moment was that voice ramped up high, as far as it wasn't quite stream of consciousness, but it was somebody trying to figure out as they're thinking about it what this moment would look like, and through the guise of talking about how you shouldn't write about a dream sequence. And somebody might read that and say, oh, fuck off. You know, can you just tell me what's happening? And that's what the book is. The book is like that. The book is, by definition, someone telling you what's happening. So it's going to be different. It's going to have that layer.
Yeah, it's the whole point of writing something from Phil Pilson point of view. You have to kind of have those experimental like explorations of narrative.
Yeah, and if they would have, that's the thing. I just want to throttle and be like, if you would have got a little bit further, if you just would have made it 10 more pages, you would have saw that there was a reason you had to go through that. It's going to start to make sense because you edited the book, so you know that it starts to deconstruct itself, but I would argue in a readable way, that rather than it being a lot of effort to get through it. When it gets experimental to meet the reader. I think it strips away shit was the attempt. So anyway,
it's a book you have to have patience, Phil, I think, especially because of how long it is. But I do think, I mean, if you kind of let down your guard on the book and just kind of let it take you, but it's going to take you, you will breeze through it. It's a fast read, I think, if you let yourself give into it.
Some people have told me that they read it very, very fast. I had somebody proofread it for me. Amy read it. She said that I watched her read it. Actually, I made sure I was right there the whole time looking over her shoulder. Didn't you think that was funny? But no, I gave her room for a day and a half, and she read the whole thing.
I've done that with my partner. Like if she's reading something I've written, I can't stop just like watching to see what little face does, and she finds it extremely annoying.
Oh, it's so bad. There's a great. Did you ever see Funny Farm? Chevy Chase?
No.
It's probably his best movie, and because there's a lot about that cringy aspect of somebody writing something that's bad, and that they have a lot of neediness towards you. So most of the movie he's writing a terrible novel. It's a heist novel too, so it's even better. He's writing a heist novel. He gives his wife his rough draft as a gift, which is one of the worst things you could probably ever do to somebody. Then he sits there as she opens the gift, and it's a stack of, fucking ragged pages, and they have like a bottle of champagne. I think it's a big celebration or anniversary or something. Then he sits down with this big expectant grin on his face. She's like, what are we doing? And he's like, go ahead, I want you to read it. And she reads like 2 pages, and then he gets closer and gets closer, and then he starts slowly pointing at a page and laughing to himself. He's like, isn't that funny? Did you think that was funny? She's like, can I just read it later? And he's like, oh, you're right, this is ridiculous. And he grabs his coat and he says, I'll come back when you're done. And then when he comes, spoiler, when he comes back, she's crying because it's so bad, because the novel's terrible.
Crying. I love it. That you mentioned your wife reading this book specifically. I am pretty interested in how she reacted, because for those who haven't read the book, I mean, the main character's name is Dave Keaton, and his wife is named Angie, even though while editing it, I found many Amy's instead.
Whoops.
So what was that like?
It was a bit of a struggle, because there was some stuff that she didn't enjoy at all. But I had that sort of loophole where I was just, it's a character, man. It's just but yeah, it's a character that it's our names and where we live, and it's our lives up until a point. And yeah, there was some stuff that she was, had these moments of, dude, is that what you think? Is that what you think of me? Is that what you think of us? Like, no, I don't even know who is this Dave? I don't know this person. Which was, which was all lies, because that's how you, I don't know.
That's
It's
the
all
whole purpose of writing.
It's all a stew of when people are, these characters they have lives of their own, or when people are like, it's you, and you can't separate the person from the work, and all these things are not true, and all these things are true. It's just a stew. When you write stuff, it's all fiction, it's all nonfiction, it's all novels, it's all short stories, it's all screenplays, it's everything. It's just a bunch of stuff. And if the fact that the characters are named after us was because in a lot of times I would write exactly what I was thinking about, exactly these things that happened. And I didn't want to take the time to distance myself, because I wanted it to be that first person really attached to the brain of that person. And talking about dreams earlier, the last novel I wrote, the guy who edited it, Osborne, he started to dream in the voice of the character, to where he said it took him a while to shake it, because there was that novel's third person, but it's third person attached. So it has a lot of the similar thing where by the time you're done with it, you kind of have those. Some people they start thinking in that way, which is not a totally alien way to think or anything, but it starts to infiltrate maybe the first, and that happens whenever I read first person. I start to think like or talk like that person for a minute.
I've had that happen with this book by Kathy Koja called Disciple. Have you read that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that book fucked me up with my sleep a lot, because most of the sentences are really disjointed and not written how you typically read a sentence. So it gave me a lot of anxiety with the way my brain was processing thoughts.
I can see that. Yeah, that book's weird, because for a while I thought that the book was failing in some way, because I was thinking, who are these people and why would they do what they're doing? And then it hit me about a third of the way through that they're like starving artist types, and of course they would linger around this dangerous thing, and they would make sculptures about it. You know what I mean? Like, I had this sort of resistance to it, because when I got to the concept, for people that haven't read it, it's this great book about somebody finds a bottomless hole in the building that this guy is living in, and him and his girlfriend, and then become obsessed with it. And this sort of small cult of friends grows, where they come by and they stick their hands in it and shit. And so just the idea of it is interesting enough, where you want them to talk it to death, and they do investigate it, they do study it, but they also do what you're saying, where they're very artsy, they're very fractured and repetitious, and sort of some of them are kind of drug addled, and you're like, who are these fucking people? And then you think, oh yeah, those are like theater kids. That's what would happen if they found the hole. Of course, if they found the hole, they'd be fuck ups like this. I like to think I would study it in a way, you know what I mean? Like, I would have that fascination with it. And of course, the people in this book, they'd fuck it if they could. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you thought about with the missing woman genre, right? You kind of thought, well, if I was in that position, I would do something differently.
Yeah, and the basis of the book is, what I would do would be to screw it up. If somebody was to attempt their own investigation, it would go off at least with me, it would go off the rails immediately. So that was the thought experiment was, if I had somebody disappear, initially my attempt to write a more normal, quote, normal book, is because everybody was making all these missing girl books. I'm like, I could do that. It's on my mind constantly. And So I thought, what would I do? And so I started off with the knock on the door. Your loved one is missing. And what do you do after that? And immediately from that moment, the character does what I think I would do, which is kind of like in the book, The Cipher, is I would start making really bad decisions. And I wouldn't think about it objectively, and I wouldn't study it like studying this anomaly, this hole in my life. I would start to just fracture and be obsessed with the minutia of the information and the moments. And it was really easy to think of it that way. And immediately, ironically, right around page
62,
start thinking, well, this is no longer going to be a normal book, and this is going to be just it's going to be another experiment, which is all I can do. Really, is I'm not that every time I try to, I'm not interested in writing a normal book, and it becomes sort of a not the backlash to the missing girl books, but I think a more believable exploration of what happens from the man's side of it, as far as having delusions of rescuing or delusions of solving things.
Yeah, I think we all have those delusions. I mean, I'm always thinking about, like, okay, what if I was in this, like, what would happen if I was stuck in a conspiracy, like watching some like paranoid conspiracy theory movie from like the 70s or 80s? Like, what if that was me? What if that was me in the parallax view? How would I handle this?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think he does parallax view. He handles it not quite a superhuman way, but he's pretty noble about what he does. I don't think I would have made it that far. He makes it pretty far. If a conspiracy, if the world is against you, like it is in that amazing movie, I don't think I'd make it to the like scripted event where I'm supposed to be the second shooter, right?
No way.
I think that I'm already at the first moment they give me the questionnaire. You know what I mean? I'd probably take a picture of it. I'd probably put it on Twitter or something. I'm not obsessed with social media, but you know what I mean? I'd be like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
What's going on? Where did they get these questions? And I think that I would show it to everybody. And I don't know, the fact that he gets as far as he does, I think is pretty incredible.
It's pretty incredible they have so much faith that he will make it to that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think was written backwards. I think it's where they knew how they were going to end it. Just like you'll read a supposed mystery novel, and people say, "Oh my God, all the clues leading up to it." Well, that's really easy to do. You just write it backwards. You just sprinkle it all in. So I think they knew where he had to go, which is to become like everything he ran into in that movie. He had to become the second shooter. He had to become the fall guy, the fake assassin. And so to get him there, they just had to have him sidestep all these moments and then later talk about how that was all part of the plan. It's like when somebody dissected The Dark Knight and said the Joker's plan is hilarious. There's an assumption that everything has to work in such a narrow channel of everyone's behavior has to follow a certain thing or his plan doesn't work. And they sort of get away back to Nolan again somehow. They sort of get away with it. Nolan gets away with it because the Joker is such a chaotic character, but his plan is just makes no sense.
What's the plan? Like, it had something to do with two boats, right?
Well, I'm from he plans somehow. I haven't watched in a while, but he plans on trying to kill Commissioner Gordon, who had trying to kill Batman, but then he's thwarted by Commissioner Gordon, who has faked his own death. But the Joker knew this somehow and got captured on purpose because he sends the guy from the Tao of Steve, or the Star of Terriers, with a bomb in his stomach. And so that guy has come to the jail, so he got arrested on purpose. So he knew Gordon was faking his death so that that bomb will blow up at the same moment. He has to have been one step ahead of everyone, and it's impossible for him to have that information.
That's fine. I think with this book you wrote, in a lot of the fiction you write, the mindset of the Kilotils are very similar to like these paranoid movies we were talking about. Like, and she was found in the Cattell case of the Dave Keaton in this book. It's really kind of paranoid and doesn't trust anybody at all. Like, he gets obsessed with those roadside crosses.
Yeah. Yeah, and that obsession is absolutely real. In Pittsburgh, those crosses started to pop up. Do you remember when you first started seeing those?
No, that just seems like they've always been in my life.
See, I think that's that age difference.
It is.
The same reason you may have grown up watching Saved by the Bell means that roadside crosses also have been in your life.
Yeah.
I think that can narrow it down. If you like me were slightly too old for Saved by the Bell, roadside crosses are weird, and they just started happening where people would put memorials up to people that died on the highway, and they got more and more elaborate. And if it's something that happened during your lifetime where you noticed the change, you might get obsessed with it.
Yeah.
You might start to, a lot of things start happening. You start thinking, are roads more dangerous now? Is that why these things are popping up?
Yeah. I mean, roads have to be more dangerous now. People have fucking cell phones that they're constantly typing into as they drive.
Right. Yeah. So it's a reminder of the danger of the road. Plus, how easy would it be to leave messages for people at these places? How easy would it be to make a series of them and to hide messages in plain sight? Right. It's sort of like you can't rent a billboard if you don't have thousands of dollars on the highway, which is the most traveled thing besides the internet. But here you can put some sort of message on a very prominent corner for the same reason people have an accident there and slow down. The same reason somebody might die there, you're able to slow down and read something. Could these things start to be messages? And so that's why that shit's in the book.
So something else you talk about in the book a lot that I enjoyed quite a bit was how people react to someone dying. And I don't think I ever thought about it too much, but I mean, you should probably talk a bit about that on the podcast. I'm not going to try to repeat what you say in the book. I wouldn't do a good job, but like I often fantasize like, okay, what would happen if my parents or my spouse died? How would that affect me, and what would I say?
Yeah. And I think that the limited experience I have with death around me, I've noticed a lot of bad reactions. I've noticed that just like it's when people say people grieve in their own way, that's very true, right? What people don't talk about as much is that some of the ways that they grieve are terribly annoying or just sort of appalling. Again, right around that same area is a chapter called 73 Reaction Shots, which is the character and some people in his circle reacting to the news of his missing or dead wife, and how many ways they could react that are terrible. At first, it was just going to be like a paragraph of them. Then it became a page of these bad reactions. Then it became this thing where I wanted the character to keep getting essentially pulled over by police, and then sort of resetting this chance to experience that grief. So then it became 3 separate digressions of that.
It goes out of control in a really entertaining way, I think. It just keeps going and going. And every paragraph, if I recall correctly, is 1 sentence long, right? But these crazy out of control sentences with like 1,000 parentheses mixed into it all.
Yeah. And those are based on, they're based on the 2 things, me thinking about what I would do and how I would react in embarrassing or appalling ways to somebody's death. And also somebody when I was going to somebody in grad school that we in our circle of friends died, and I watched a lot of people do those things and react in those ways. And there were some performative reactions that I can say, because none of them are going to listen to this.
You don't know that, man. They might.
Well, I that's all I'll say about it. If they want to go to that page and check it out, they might find something that they said word for word to me in that moment.
Oh, no.
Sorry, but I absorbed your shit was fair game. You know, if you said it to me, it's
Yeah.
fair game.
Another thing kind of similar to reactions to death that I want to bring up is how excited the cops must be to deliver these news, like on the front steps of someone's house. It really made a lot of sense once you read it out.
Dude, that I took some heat for that when a friend of mine read that, and then a friend, I think I might have, did I post something to that? This book has been kicked around for a decade, so there's pieces of it that people have read, or thoughts that I've had about it that may have started as a Facebook post, like just being a dick about it. I think I'd watched We Are Soldiers, the Mel Gibson movie, and I think it starts off with all of those knocks on the door, you know, and what always annoyed me was it seemed like you were supposed to really feel sorry for these poor soldiers who come to the door to deliver the news. You know, that what a terrible duty they have to, you know, absorb all of this trauma. And there was something that sat wrong with me about it, and so I made some crack, I think, on Facebook about it, like all these poor assholes who, you know, get to I'm not even going to go into it. but a friend of a friend who was in the military at the time said, he was like, you got a lot of nerve saying that. I know people who do that. I know people who deliver that news, and it really wreaks havoc on them. And I was like, yeah, so I got him to talk about it a little bit more. And then I stole all that shit and flipped it around and made fun of the story. So the character essentially is just kind of doubles down on that. When somebody comes to him to play that role, the character in the book senses that sort of smugness of having that important job, or just the idea of, you know, combined with a very current hatred of police officers, and the idea that, you know, that they're doing such a dangerous job, you know, number 25 on the most dangerous jobs in the country. Not a very dangerous job, but the idea that they can still pretend to be soldiers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's always funny. It's always funny in movies, like when you do see like the soldiers in camo just standing in the front, you know, and the wife sees them and just collapses
And crumbles, right? So that shit just drove me up a wall. And yeah, I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, that moment I think was ripe for a takedown. That and I had luckily the book was in so many phases for so long that I was able to take people complaining about that idea and just keep using it. Just like if you look deeper into the book, there's an actual breakup letter that somebody sent me once. If she ever comes across the book, you know, good luck.
Oh yeah, remind me of what you're talking about.
There's in the book, and this isn't really a spoiler. The character drives around with the notes and the research that his wife was doing before her death or / disappearance, and kind of that's his clues to figure out what's going on. He picks up some a makeshift crew on his travels. He hooks up with a couple people, and they also become part of his team, right? Looking into this thing. And there's an envelope that he's left sealed, and he was sort of saving it. There's some hint that these possible suicide notes, you know, what's going on with the sealed parts of that information. And when it's opened, it's a breakup letter. It's essentially his wife telling him that she's leaving him, which does a lot of things at the same time. It kind of indicts that character a little bit, like, wait, everybody thinks you might be involved in this. Are you involved in this? and also it gives the woman who's disappeared from the book a voice. She gets to talk, and you get to learn more about the character that you're spending all this time with through the voice of somebody else on the page. So the other person in the car reads the letter out loud, I think, is what happens, so that the character can further project these emotions onto this surrogate person that he's brought into the car. And
the hell, I don't remember any of this, man. The way I remember it, I mean, this isn't really spoiling too much, but the woman who's with them, who joins his crew, when I try to picture the scene you're talking about, I thought she reads it silently and then eats it, and then he never knows what it says.
I thought she read it out loud. She definitely eats it. Maybe, I like your version better, because then he doesn't get to hear it.
Yeah, maybe she doesn't finish reading it out loud. Maybe she begins to and then stops. Yeah. I don't know. If anyone listening wants to know, go buy the book.
Yeah, read it. Let us know what happens in this fucking book. No clue.
Before we wrap up completely, do you still have a little bit of time?
Yeah, we got time.
We should
I just heard them. I just heard the baby getting put down for the nap, so we've got. Cool. We got some time.
So we should talk a little bit more about the topic of the episode, just because that's what we're advertising. This is what it's about. Like, when you think of this genre of missing women, like, what comes to mind beyond like the Gillian Flynn book?
The Millennium series was big. I just read that. There's the missing girl hovers over that whole thing, and again writes. I'm starting to think about some parallels. She is sending cryptic plants to her uncle. Isn't that how it goes? I forget.
I don't know.
It's a fascinating book, but that was one of them where what happened to this girl.
And what book was that? Because you did kind of cut out again.
Oh, the first one in the Millennium series, the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Okay, gotcha.
Which isn't really about the girl with the dragon tattoo. She's just sort of a peripheral character in that first book.
Okay, I haven't read any of those books yet, so you would recommend them?
Let me ask you this: do you like reading people's emails? Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, man.
Well, I've got a book for you, because I think the girl with the dragon tattoo might have 200 pages of emails in it. It's one of those books that's just it's huge. It's got to be 800 pages. It's a fucking brick.
I mean, for you to say that, it's pretty amazing.
It's huge. When you think it's over, there's a big fucking caper where they're going to steal $1 billion. When you think the plot has resolved itself, they have this big heist.
What?
And Fincher tried to film it. Have you ever seen the film?
No, I haven't.
It's the film is actually kind of amazing. He does what he can with it, which is good. And he gets that. There is that Zodiac aspect to it. Well, I think we talked about how, didn't we talk about how we the two of books that are basically Zodiac's endless conversations in diners, right?
Yeah, we've talked about that. Not on the podcast, but just
and
online.
That's something that's I really enjoy listening to people talk about these. I think that's why true crime podcasts took off too. People love listening to people talk about these things and trying to crack the case. There's an aspect of that in the book I wrote, but there's also an aspect of that in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and also in Fincher's adaptation. He settles into that pretty, I think, post Zodiac. He knows that movie succeeded because it was so unwieldy and sprawling, and where that one didn't solve anything, he gets to solve things in this one. But he also gets to have people kind of bumble around the case in a mostly ineffective way. This doesn't really spoil anything because it's a main plot point that's ruined in the trailer. I think he bumbles onto just a serial killer that has nothing to do with his case.
Oh my God. Okay.
Here's another thing. And he takes a wrong turn into that world, which is fascinating. The idea that he just took a left and, oh, there's a serial killer and who has nothing to do with anything. That's how big that book is, right? So yeah, the talking about, endless conversations in diners is part of the, I think, both the attraction to the thing I wrote. I think it's the attraction to the missing women genre, because the My Perfect Murder and all these podcasts that have sort of blossomed from that. I think people are really interested in that conversations about murder in diner vibe.
Yeah.
And I think it's there.
As when you were younger, like I know I did a lot. Like, did you ever just sit around like in Denny's, like at fucking midnight, just talking about crazy shit that you've read about?
I did, or just to sit up. We did it at there wasn't a Denny's, but there was a like a hot dog stand that served chili mac. So it was spaghetti noodles with chili on it, which was delicious at about 2 a.m. And we would just spend all night there talking about. One time we just talked about The Stand. A couple of us had read it, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna stay here until it's about 4, and then we'll walk home, and the streets will be so desolate we can pretend we're in the book. That might have been actually when that first miniseries came out. But yeah, the idea of talking about terrible things in diners is, I think, that connects the generations. Even if you're from the Saved by the Bell, roadside crosses have always been with us generation, I think talking about murder in diners is universal. Yeah. I would say. I actually made a list of, let me try to think of it. Diner movies with great diner scenes.
Thief is a good one.
Yes. Thief is that's one that the whole movie is that diner. Right?
Yeah. Heat has a great one, of course.
Heat has, right? Heat. So that's 2 Michael Mann ones. Good job.
He's good with those.
That's how your brain works, huh?
And then I've obviously the opening of Pulp Fiction is pretty fucking iconic.
Pulp Fiction. Zodiac's got when he acts it out with the salt shakers. The Big Lebowski spends some time in diners. The Birds has an amazing diner sequence in it when shit starts going wrong. And
what movie?
The Birds, Hitchcock's The Birds.
I thought you said The Bilbs, the Tom Hanks movie. I'm like, they don't leave that fucking streets.
They don't. But that I think spiritually that's a diner. If you think about it, because they sit there and he pulls out old eggs and bacon, and they all sit around and talk about, what do you think's going on next door, Ray? That's a diner.
I love that movie, man. It's so good. It's so good.
Goon, the hockey movie, as an excellent diner, sort of a Heat knockoff moment. For fucking Reservoir Dogs. We forgot Reservoir Dogs probably started it with the diner.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, wait, when did Heat come out?
Wait, I'm a fucking idiot. You know what started it with the diner scenes?
What was that?
Fucking Diner. The movie Diner.
I don't know that. I don't know that movie.
It's basically about 5 or 6 assholes sitting around in a diner talking about their relationships. It's got Mickey Rourke, Steve Guttenberg. Yeah, okay. I think it's safe to say Diner started the diner thing.
Okay. I'll look into that one. I haven't seen it.
But then again, wait, Grease was before Diner. We're gonna solve this. 5 Easy Pieces was before Grease, and that has a very, very good diner.
When did Waiting for Godot come out? That's all sitting at a restaurant, man.
It's basically a diner.
I'm looking at diner restaurant movies, dude. Completely off topic. I have been trying so hard to get a booth from a diner, like a restaurant. I cannot. I'm having the worst luck just buying a booth.
Oh, you want to buy one?
Yeah, I am. Because I'm a doofus who is obsessed with The Simpsons.
Dude, and I'm going to send you some pictures. My wife's aunt. My wife's uncle's wife, whoever that may be. She has a diner in her garage. She put together this old Art Deco diner with a little jukebox. It's just in the garage.
I just want the seat, man. John Swartzwelder, who was like the best Riddle on The Simpsons in the old seasons. I read this thing a long time ago how like he no longer wanted to go into the writing room because they wouldn't let him smoke. So he said, "Okay, I'm just gonna write from home then," because he couldn't write at his favorite restaurant anymore because again he couldn't smoke at the restaurants. So he bought this fucking booth from the restaurant and had it in his house, and he would just write at this booth. And I find that really romantic, kind of. I want to get a booth, but every time I've tried to buy one, it's just disaster has struck. Like I a couple months ago, myself and my friend, we borrowed a truck from someone, and we drove like an hour and a half into deep downtown Austin, and like this guy we were buying it from lived at some kind of junkyard. It was really like spooky movie vibes. And we drove up, and I called the guy, and I was like, "Hey, I'm the guy we made an appointment for like last week. I'm here to pick up this thing at, like we agreed upon." And he was like, "Oh no, Max, I wish you had called me. I sold those already." And I was like, "What do you mean you fucking sold them? We had an appointment." He was like,
Oh no.
he was like, I didn't. I was hoping you would call me. And I said, "Why didn't you call me?" And he was like, "Oh, I lost your phone number." And then it was like, "Why didn't you email me?" And he said, "I forgot we emailed." And I was like, "Well, when the fuck did you sell these?" And it was like a day after we had made the reservation. Just like as soon as we had finished talking, he went and sold them.
So how long have you wanted this diet? How long did you dream about this booth?
Like at least 5 months, man.
Oh, okay. So it's recent.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a recent obsession. I think that this is something where you just have to create it. Like, I think I don't want to dig too deep into this, but I think you might just you could just create your, unless you want, are you trying to take a space? Are you trying to take like you want one that's been seasoned with the sweat of years of people?
I don't want a new one. I want to buy one that's been broken in.
Okay. So okay. I see what you're saying. So you want to just kind of, it's going to take a lot of things to align for you to find. It has to be like when they close down a Kmart and we swoop in and get all the mannequins we can. You kind of, there's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Where you can get your booth, I think. I hope it has nothing to do with your name. You're not obsessed with booths because of your name, are you?
It has nothing to do with it, but I do suspect, because I've contacted many people who are selling booths, and sometimes they don't respond to me. And I think they think it's like a strange spam I'm doing.
Right. They're like, ha ha ha. Okay, Mr. Booth.
The same thing happens like when we go to a restaurant and like they say name, and I'll say, "Oh, booth," and sometimes they get mad at me because they go, "Well, I don't know what's available yet."
Oh no,
my life's hell.
So maybe your name might be it might be like the prophecy, like you're not meant to have a booth.
I don't think
like
so, man.
You carry your booth with you. If you had a booth, you'd be like Alexander saw the breadth of his booth and he wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. You can't have your booth because then that's it. That's the end of your story.
That is true. I would probably die after that. Well, maybe I would go missing and you would have to track me down.
Somebody's creeping in here.
Oh my.
She's whispering. So you can say hi to Max.
Hi, Max.
Can you hear her? She's great. Great. Yes. We got a sleeping baby. We've got a baby sleeping next to a door in the floor. Did I tell you this, that there's a crawl space door in her fucking bedroom? The baby's bedroom?
Why?
Oh my God, dude. It's weird enough. Speaking of were we even speaking of that?
Yeah. What? I don't know. Wait,
speaking of doors in the floor.
For those listening, introduce the audience to this strange house you now live in.
So we moved, and the house used to be a B&B. So there's a door to the outside in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms, which is weird enough. So I've dealt with a few of them where I've got a dresser in front of one. So it just looks like a window. All of them open inward. Or wait, let me look at the one in here. There's one right here. The dresser in front of it. Yeah, they all open inward except for one, which opens outward. And I think, as I told you, that vindicates the people that were complaining about your book How don't they just pull the doors don't open out? But yes, they do. And I have one that does. And if I got stuck in that room, I'd be fucked because it does open outward. And that's the one that worries me because it's you can't really barricade a door that opens outward. It's and that one is a little spooky, but also in the baby's room, there's a door which has been dealt with. But then we're looking around to install cable because there was no cable box. And the crawl space entrance is in the baby's room next to the crib. So there's a square, a square with a ring on it that you pop up, and there's the ground. So I'm just like, so Amy had a nightmare the day we discovered it. She had a nightmare that somebody was coming out of that hole. I've thought about little else since I discovered it.
Okay. Well, have you guys considered just moving the room that she's in?
No, because it doesn't. It would just be it wouldn't have the door on the floor, sure.
Yeah.
but it's like the perfect room for her because the other bedroom is upstairs and it's wooden stairs, and then I'd be freaking out that she'd come walking down these wooden stairs at night.
Man, when she becomes a teenager, she's gonna love that room, man. It's gonna be so easy to sneak out.
I don't think we'll be here that long. There's too much. I've been thinking too much about the door and the floor.
It's terrifying, and I'm hoping that you're already planning on putting that into a book somehow, because this is like a House of Leaves house,
which I'm reading right now.
I know.
Yeah, so we didn't need to find a door in the floor while reading House of Leaves, which is a pretty good book. I came to it late. You read it, right?
As a teenager, yeah, when I was watching Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell, House of Leaves, Roadside Crosses, The Huge.
Isn't that a Rage Against the Machine song?
It should be.
Roadside Crosses. What the fuck am I thinking of?
I don't know. Bulls on Parade.
I don't know. They have a song where they have the wheeled crosses in it.
Oh, something crosses.
Roadside crosses.
Something roadside crosses. We get to see. You're not going to trick me into rapping on your podcast.
It is something I do with every guest. Yeah, I do trick them into rapping. That is, I'm not joking. Something I'm terrified of happening one day is being challenged to a battle rap, because I am of the generation of Saved by the Bell and Roadside Crosses. 8 Mile came out when I was a child, and my school was obsessed with it, and they would do battle raps, and I was terrified one day I would have to do one, and I still am.
See, I wish I would have grown up where all I had to worry about was battle rap rather than actual assault, because we were still hitting each other in the face when we were in high school. You guys are just rapping at each other. But no, I'm jealous. I think about how I do. Okay, here's the thing. Half of my brain is obsessed with what happens if a loved one is missing. Yeah. The other half is, would I be a good rapper? Like if I was born in a different time, in a different place, I think I would be pretty good, because I tend to think about the next thing before I say it. Isn't that half the battle?
I think so, yeah.
I think I'd be pretty good at it.
Have you rapped before?
I did have, yeah, we had a parody band in high school. Right?
Oh, God damn it. Go on.
So rap started to creep into the parody band. The less you hear about that, the better. We were making guitar noises with our mouths. It wasn't pretty.
What was the name of the band?
The band was called Yeah Right, but I got kicked out of the band because I got kicked out of the fake band by my only friends because I couldn't keep beat on the bucket that I was hitting instead of a drum.
Yeah.
I just kept speeding up. And they're like, are you doing that on purpose? And then when I came back, they're like, Dave, we were thinking that you could do your own spin-off band.
Does Amy know about this?
Oh, she's heard about it a lot.
Okay.
She's heard about a lot of the parody songs because I was listening to David Bowie recently, and one of the parody songs was about Let's Dance, except it was called Red Ants. And it was about ants, and yeah, it's pretty bad. But there's a lot of layers to that song. I was proud of that one. Mostly they were Weird Al was big at the time.
Yeah.
So it was Weird Al worship.
He still is pretty big, isn't he? Maybe, I don't know.
He puts out books with Nathan Rabin or whatever, the guy from The Dissolve and The Onion.
Yeah, the guy we published.
We published him in Tales from the Crust.
Yes. He never acknowledged
it. Closer. He's the closer.
Yeah.
He acknowledged it on Facebook. He's been very nice about it, but I didn't see anything that moved the needle as far as sales.
No, neither did I.
The thing is, he was a prophet. His story is all about this. Well, not all about it, but it's about the sort of edgelord type that wanted the Snyder Cut released before it was released. So
there you go. Yeah, then because now who gives a shit about the ones who create anything? It's all about the fans, and they dictate what happens. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like they say some of those that work forces are the same ones that roadside crosses.
I think you should be getting a new band, man.
I just get kicked. I would kick myself out for not keeping the beat.
Kelby did a great rap song for the theme of this podcast.
He is an actual rapper. I would never presume to say I was on the level of Kelby.
Losac. Yeah, I think maybe you two should battle rap.
I could. I would.
He might shoot you. He has lots of guns.
Straight out of Losac. That would be my diss track for Kelby. Straight out of Losac.
You could probably make some like scrotum jokes with him.
How could you not? Your name's. I mean, you guys would be fucking low-hanging fruit, literally. You got Losac and Booth over here.
What's wrong with Booth?
I don't know. Sounds like you're kind of in the weeds with your own name. Yeah. Obsessed with Booth.
When I was a kid, they would always call me Max Boob.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I would cry.
That's not even that creative as far as that's not a good diss track.
No, it's not. Anyway,
could have beat them why didn't you battle them? You could have battled them right there.
Was not confident with the way I talked back then. I still am not confident. I don't know how to rhyme.
Well, it's not about rhyming. It's about
rhyming. What do you mean?
It's about I was trying to give you a pep talk.
You're wrong though. It's about rhyming. Rapping is all rhymes.
Never mind. life coaching over.
Definitely no one's listening at this point. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about with the missing people genre?
No, I think that
that
about covers it. I think read the fucking book. You'll be the first one to review it.
That is besides yourself, you mean?
Yeah.
I did read it. Yeah,
I did just to get the Goodreads hate.
Did anyone say anything?
No, people tend to. I think it opens the door to other people reviewing their own books, and so they support me when I review my own book.
I did have a question though. Have you known anyone who has gone missing, B-Phil?
That's a good question. Good look at you with the questions. Fucking questions. There are people that I knew when I was younger that that's a good question, because in the age of the internet, if somebody is off the grid, you're surrounded by missing people because it's so unusual. I have so many people that I knew very well that just, for whatever reason, never became an internet presence. And to me, they might as well have ceased to exist, because I don't know how to even begin to find them. I would have to old school knock on doors and ask questions, and they feel like they vanished because they're not on the internet. People that I knew, this was the days of the rotary phone, back in the 80s.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
A rotary phone.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
There used to be a phone, and you would stick your penis into it, and you would move it left or right as many times as the number. And
you can do that with any phone now.
well, I mean, I think isn't it a little bit? I think it's a little bit past the dick pic heyday. I don't think those are in vogue anymore.
No, there's an app you can download. Well, you have to like tap your penis against like it's like kind of like Tetris.
Oh my god!
I've made that
Really?
up. I made it up, but it sounds right. It sounds like it's real.
Well, since you came at me with these questions, which
Yeah.
I'm sort of horrified by, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Have you ever sent a dick pic to somebody?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Was it before that became a terrible thing to do?
I mean, it wasn't like here you go.
Was it aggressive?
No,
Or was
it was like I showed you something, you showed me something. I was like, okay, that type of
you're
thing.
so gross. You're so
Is
fucking
it?
gross. It's so gross. Why would
I'll send it to you, man. It's cool.
you do that?
I will.
No, here's the thing. There's a loophole. Just if you send dick pics to all of your male friends, it's like a loophole. Like if you, it's casting a wide net, and then nobody can say, why did you send that to me? It's like, I sent it to everybody. I told him that Trump had COVID, and I sent everybody a picture of my balls.
Yeah, it seems like a great loophole. Like, say if you do send it to someone and they react badly, immediately CC every contact in your email and send it to them at once, because you can just say, oh, I got hacked or something.
Well, I don't know. This is all bad. This is bad advice, bad life coaching. I could feel it slipping away from us.
I hate that you asked me that question.
I know. What a terrible question.
But fuck you. I'm going back to missing. Like, if you had ever known anyone who went missing, I've been on the opposite end of that. Well, I was the one who went missing. Not like, oh, we need to like post photos of Max around the town to see if anyone has seen him. But I don't know how much you know about my childhood at all. I don't know how much we've talked about in the past.
I know some of it. I know the hotel stuff.
Yeah. So when I was 12, we kind of lost the house we were living in due to no one paying for it, and then it being condemned. And we began living in hotels, and it got way too difficult for my dad to drive me to school and then pick me up again every day. So they decided, fuck it, we're just going to homeschool him for the rest of the year. So they went and they pulled me out of school. And then I never went back to that town. And every friend I had, we just ceased communications because like we didn't really have social media. At least I didn't then. So imagine it from their point of view. Like one day I'm going to school every day. I'm walking around, going to little houses and shit and like hanging out. And then I just disappeared for like 6 months. And finally they got me like a computer and I like got a MySpace and I found some of my friends and they were like, where the hell did you go? I was the missing kid.
Yeah. That's an age when it would be impactful to them. Like all the people that you vanished on, you might have had you shaped their personalities in a slight way, maybe. Like if they had any, just because it's an unusual thing to happen, especially if you come back.
Yeah, I never went back. Like most of them I never saw again. So like I wonder like what they must think. Like, oh man, I like a lot of those kids, like I had known since kindergarten, right? Like we grew up through all the grades and then suddenly I vanish. It's pretty cool.
You're like a cautionary tale.
Against what? I don't know. Sending dick pics.
Whatever you would be mapped on to whatever transgression somebody wanted to use. They would be like, well, that's what happened to Max.
Yeah, kind of like what was it? Freaks and Geeks. Well, the dad would go like, I once knew a kid who lived in a hotel. You know what happened to him? He died. Anyway, how can folks find you online, man?
I have an ancient website that's embarrassing to look at, but so yeah, or Twitter. So davidjameskeaton.com has links there, or Spiderfrogged is the Twitter handle. I've got some links there. That's about. I should really update those things.
Let me ask you before we go. What's the story behind Spiderfrogged?
It's based on. It's part of a story. Like the first short story I wrote when I was a little kid was about spiders. It was that's a very common theme for a little kid's story. So somebody steps on a spider and then it lays eggs in their foot and then their foot explodes into baby spiders. So there's always been a spider thing, but then also probably about 20 years ago, there was a series of articles about poisoning frogs and how frogs are the first place that toxins, if there's a toxic environment, you can look at the frogs. It's like, the phrase, you can judge a society by its prisoners. You can judge environment by the state of its frogs. And there were all these articles about these crazy mutations that were happening quickly because frogs have very permeable skin, and they're existing in these toxins. So there was a lot of imagery of, one of them was transparent. The frog was transparent. Another one had this anomaly where it couldn't stop eating rocks, so you could see that it was full of rocks. But the ones that stuck with me were the ones that had dozens of legs. So so you get a frog with a leg upon leg upon leg, and there's these X-rays that they had of where you can see where they sort of sprout and just keep dividing and dividing. Like, it's not just the legs coming out of the body, it's legs coming out of the legs. So it's almost like like one of those videos where you zoom in on a hand and then the hand becomes fingers and then the fingers become a hand. And so I always thought that was kind of fascinating. So that's what it was.
Do you guys have frogs by you now, like in California?
We do. More lizards and frogs.
Someone needs to go to that site where that family died and see what the frogs are like.
See what the frogs are like. Yeah.
What the fuck? Okay.
They're all transparent, full of rocks, battle rapping.
And that was David James Keaton talking about his new book, She Was Found in the Guitar Case. Go buy it at Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing. Go on over to perpetualpublishing.com. It's on the homepage, probably. I don't know. Leave a review of the book on Goodreads, on Amazon. Leave a review of the podcast on iTunes, and I don't know who else you leave reviews of podcasts. I have no idea. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/PMM Publishing. Go buy a book, any book. But if you wanted my suggestion, go buy David James Keaton's She Was Found in the Guitar Case. You won't regret it, unless you do, in which case no refunds.